From humble beginning to the heights of senior producer in the media industry, Daniel Fernand has been into the media industry for over 3 decades now. From CNN to Africa 24 Media, a very influential media personality who remains an inspiration to many. The life of Daniel Fernand. Daniel was born in Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. He was a brilliant but rebellious student. He held various posts such as vice president of the student union and captain of football team. But at George Mason University, it was time to take a new angle in life.
And I've done about 2 years, and my dad says, listen, I'm at this new place, CNN. It's really going to go places. Yeah, you should come now. You won't even have to start entry level. I mean, we're having a hard time finding people that want to work here. And part of the reason was because of the low pay. I ended up moving to CNN and making half as much money as I was making as a telemarketing sales manager, paying my way through college. But so I moved to CNN, and it was a great experience. I mean, my father being an executive there, I always had his ear, so I could have an impact on coverage, but he would always give me advice on what I was doing. And at the time, it was young people. Yeah? So I got to do stuff that grown-ups were supposed to be doing. I was traveling around on the presidential campaign, interviewing the candidates for president when I was 24 years old. The network producers were making $90,000 a year. I was making 18. So, I mean, I was a young kid getting to do cool stuff and not getting paid very much money.
Drawing inspiration from his father, Daniel Fernand has always dreamt of working in the media industry.
He would tell me his stories from work, and we would watch the ABC national news every night. So I had a good background in news, but also in the mechanics of reporting news. Then when I was in school, when I was in college, and I was a history major, he told me, don't bother taking radio, TV. They'll just tell you when you get out of school that the technology's changed and you got to learn it all over again. So I learned history to get some background on what I would be covering eventually.
Daniel was in his 20s when he started making impacts in the media industry, traversing every corner of this world.
First story that I ever worked on where I saw dead people was the Oklahoma City bombing. Timothy McVeigh drove a truck full of fertilizer into the federal building there and killed a bunch of people, including a lot of kids in a daycare center. That was pretty tragic. I mean, after about 5 days, the wind shifted and the smell of death, because there were still people trapped underneath the rubble, kind of washed over all of us. When I got to Asia, which is what I wanted to do, that's why I joined AP, and I was surprised but very gratified that I got that opportunity. Thank you, Nigel Hancock and some of the guys there. But yeah, it was really cool traveling around. It was really interesting. Asia at the time was changing rapidly, both politically, economically, and socially. We saw a lot of changes while we were there. There was a lot of culture that was interesting and very distinct that we got to know. And yeah, I worked on a lot of cool stories when out there. Political revolutions, natural disasters. I worked on a lot of economic conferences, which seems to most people to be boring. But at the time, the things that they were doing were going to lead to big changes in people's fortunes and people's lives.
It was during this media travel that Daniel Fernand found himself in Africa.
This Canadian cameraman, Chris Jackson, who went into the business because of Muhammad Amin, said he hooked me up with Africa 24, actually when I was still with Abu Dhabi TV. And so I came and met with these guys, and what they were doing was exciting, multi-platforming, doing things all over Africa. So I went back to Asia, and I had a friend who had good connections in China. And about that time, the Chinese government had given $2.5 billion to CCTV, the state broadcaster, $2.5 billion to Xinhua, which is the Scribbler news service that's all over the world, and asked them to set up 24-hour English language news channels, 2 competing channels, really. They had seen how Al Jazeera had changed the conversation from being very Anglo-centric with BBC or very Amero-centric with CNN, and they wanted the Chinese point of view to be out there. So I managed to get meetings with some of the executives there, and when I was ready to finish my year of messing around, I came here to close the contract with CCTV and get paid, which I didn't. But that's because they offered me a job here, and we signed a documentary contract to do Faces of Africa, which has been a very successful documentary series for both us and for CCTV, which has now changed their name to CGTN. And I think it really started us down the road of Africa 24 deciding we were going to do positive stories about Africa.
Rose Musetti is a colleague at Africa 24 Media and has worked with Daniel for over 6 years now.
I've been fortunate enough to work very closely with Daniel Fernand, and I've learned a lot from him. He has over 30 years of experience in the media production business, especially the news business, and I've learned a lot in terms of scripting, editing, how to watch a good quality video, how to get out in the field and get whoever you're trying to find to interview or do a story on. So it's invaluable the amount of skills and expertise that I've learned from him, and just how to get around this media and news business, how to get your way around things.
Ready to start all over again in marriage after his wife passed away, Daniel Fernand is married to a Kenyan wife and has 2 kids, which leave him to juggle between work and family.
My kids need a lot of my attention, and being a father is new to me. So I used to work from about 8:30 in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night here, and I try to leave by 6:30 or 7 now so that I can spend more time with them. It's really hard. It's hard to be a dedicated journalist or a dedicated TV production person where you can put more time in all the time. You can always make things better, put more polish, investigate a story further. You can always do more. So having the discipline not to do your work all the time, which sounds funny to some people who need the discipline to do the work, but having the discipline not to do your work all the time so you can make your family a priority.
Yet he's a motivation to many.
Well, Daniel is a cool guy. I remember the first time I met him, I came for auditions here, and he told me I'm okay and all. He builds your self-confidence.
You have issues with assignments and your stories, and he's really helpful and very supportive and very encouraging. And even if he's to fault you in an issue, he really has to make sure that he commends you on the job first before pointing out your mistake, which is something very special, something that does not happen with many.
But one thing is clear, Daniel is more determined to make it big in the media industry than ever before.
Know about the future of Africa 24. I think it was conceived with some good ideas, but hasn't maintained a focus. I think that I would like to work for a company that engages the big money payers right now for TV content, Netflix, Amazon, things like that. And it may take a bigger organization to do that. I would like to work in Africa longer because I still think that African stories are not being adequately told.
Daniel has quite a lively personality. You meet him for just a few minutes and you've got to love him. You either love him or hate him. Most likely you love him because he's so bubbly, he's so outgoing. He even knows how to bring out the best in the most quiet person. He always looks out for the good. So when sometimes you just go out looking out the negatives, picking things on people's, whether the way they are doing things on their personalities, he always sees the best. And worst of all is he knows how to stay positive when things are just negative. He knows how to calm a situation when you're working under pressure. Everyone is feeling, can't do this anymore. He's the one who always comes and shows you, things can be controlled. Things are still under control. It's never that bad.